I think people are trying to figure out what the next steps are in this whole tariff process. And the tariffs are still in effect, right? Everything is stayed until we get the Supreme Court to they'll take the case, I assume. And we'll have an argument and probably a decision, I would think, because of the urgency of this by the end of the year. Um, I don't know. I think some people could be focused. There's been a lot of discussion this morning about impacts on the deficit because all this supposed trillions of dollars over 10 years of tariff revenue could conceivably go away, and that exacerbates deficit concerns and has bond market implications, et cetera. I leave that to the folks who do the bond market to tell you what the shakeout really is there. But as of now, the tariffs remain in effect under IEEPA until the court rules. I think that there's some talk now. I think the administration is working much more diligently behind the scenes to figure out what the backup plan would be if they lose IEEPA tariffs. I think increasingly the consensus view will be that that risk is much, much higher than people previously appreciated, even going to the Supreme Court with a conservative majority. And they're talking about even using 338 of the Tariff Act. That's another law that has never been used to impose tariffs, but it does technically allow the imposition of tariffs of up to 50% for countries that discriminate against U.S. goods. And they may want to use that one because it has unilateral power once the president determines that you have a discriminatory practice that he's addressing. The problem with that one is that it's kind of a dormant law because after they passed a different Trade Act provision, there's real question 301 of the 1974 Trade Act, whether the 1930 Tariff Act is still valid. It's going to get a whole different set of legal questions about that if the president uses it. And then, of course, the question is what happens with all the trade agreements that are being negotiated. I think the idea of getting one with the EU and Japan, et cetera, and working it all out would stabilize things because, as we said before, you work out these agreements, whether or not IEEPA was legal or not. If they agree to, like EU 15% tariffs, if they agree to that and Congress approves that trade deal, well, IEEPA is irrelevant, right? You have Congress approving these trade agreements. So I think that's still ultimately the course this needs to take. But a lot of things get tossed into the air by this case. And again, we figure that more likely than not, still, the Supreme Court ultimately affirms and says that these tariffs are illegal under IEEPA, but the administration is now working on its backup plans, and I think that's where a lot of the uncertainty may lie. It would require probably a lot of refunds once the Supreme Court rules on this. If they affirm, there's hundreds of billions of dollars in refund money that's going to be coming. So anyway, I think that's where the shakeout is. As of now, they're still in effect. Figure the Supreme Court will take this thing for argument in the fall with a potential decision as early as the end of the year. But we'll know more when the filings come.
Thanks for watching Hedgeye on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to click on the button below there. Subscribe to our YouTube page. You can also follow the link in the description to our website to get even more great investing content.